journey. The focus on career development and awareness beginning at the middle school level, not high school. The impact of artificial intelligence on our profession and how to enhance, prepare, and safeguard our organization. And reimagining the one classroom, 25 student teacher model were topics of significant interest for our group of attendees. Educational Services, I just found out today, is already preparing to partner with ASU to explore how artificial intelligence can help decrease the paperwork load for teachers, specifically in the area of supporting students with high needs. So thank you, Ed Services. On April 24th, you will be receiving our annual parent survey. Your feedback is crucial as we strive to provide each student with the exceptional educational experience. I know everyone receives so many surveys, but this one is so important to us because we want to be responsive to you and your student. The survey will be open until May 15th. Thank you in advance for taking the time to do that. It's not too late to buy your tickets to the Madison Gala. Viva Madison, the second Madison Educational Foundation event back since COVID. It's the biggest fundraiser of the year. If you can join and support us for a fun-filled casino night with casino-style gaming, silent auction, raffle, and live music, get your tickets on the foundation website and you will fund so many projects for Madison students, such as the grant we just heard about tonight. Please visit MadisonEducationFoundation.org to find out more information about that. Tomorrow is National Administrator Professional Day. I know the board shares my appreciation for Danielle Humphrey. I could not imagine a day without her, and she supports me, all of us in the district, and all governing board members. And I can't tell you the number of people that stop by to seek her support every single day. So thank you, Danielle. And then, because it is Appreciation Month, you can ask Jackie, she's been very busy. National Teacher Staff Appreciation is May 6th through the 10th. It's a perfect time to show our staff how much they are valued and appreciated and how much they impact children every day. Thank you.
Dr. Guerin. We'll move on to our board member reports. I'll start with Ms. Steer.
Thank you. I wanted to extend my gratitude to the Cub Scouts for tonight's flag ceremony, and thank you to all of our Madison Heights fourth graders who were able to demonstrate their extraordinary language skills as well as presentation skills. That is, it demonstrates years of hard work, not just by our students, but also by our staff. It's really hard to teach two languages in one day in one school, and our staff does it beautifully. And I would also like to remind everybody that it was not that long ago that bilingual education was against the law in the state of Arizona. When my daughter, who is now 23, started kindergarten, it was actually against the law. There were two schools that I secured variances to for her to attend that were doing it under the radar and under threat of, I don't even know what. I'm not exactly sure what the threat was, but it was literally against the law. And so how far we have come, and we need to protect the opportunity for our students to learn a second language. Studies show the myriad of benefits, academic, social, and economic. Economic opportunities for students, for individuals who know more than one language do exceed those of us who only know one. And finally, congratulations to all of our award winners and a debt of gratitude to Gabby Garcia. It is really emotional to think about what she was able to avert. Her quick thinking averted a potentially deadly event on one of our school buses. And I just wanted to explain why we were all getting so emotional up here when we hugged her, because we know what could have been. And we just owe her a debt of gratitude. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spear. Ms. Causey?
I'd like to echo my colleague, Ms. Spear's comments. They're really important. Also would like to thank President Gresham for taking the time out of her busy day to attend the first ASBA County Director Collaborative Conversation. I appreciate your leadership and taking the time to not just collaborate with fellow presidents and other school boards across our county, but also just taking the time to connect with ASBA and sharing your thoughts. It's really important work. Wanted just to give some updates on ASBA. Attended a BOLTS training last week, which I helped facilitate, and it was really quite stunning to hear all of the issues that so many other school boards are dealing with in regards to decorum, dealing with information that is not necessarily true, dealing with boards that are split and not willing to really have conversations that focus on the needs of the kids and the district. So I just want to acknowledge just how lucky and blessed I feel to work with 4 other outstanding school board members. So thank you, because I know that in my core, but then to hear again what other districts and school boards are dealing with, it was just a reminder of just how truly fabulous you are. So thank you for that. In regards to the ASBA, Arizona School Board Association, we unfortunately had to identify another search firm. And so we are in the process of, we've signed the contract, and so if you know of any candidates for our next executive director, that position will post on May 1st, and there'll be about a month period of time for individuals to submit their applications. So please help spread the word. I will certainly have it on my social media. I encourage you to help us get the word out there. Also just wanted to add, hope to see you on Saturday at the Madison Education Foundation Gala. I personally collected some pretty fabulous silent auction items, including a night at the Biltmore and breakfast, a gardening assessment by moi, along with a gift certificate from a local gardening center, and then lottery tickets even. So, and I know that many of you have also been collecting items, so it's going to be really fun. There's going to be some great food, and there are going to be some great silent auction items. So I hope to see you there, as well as everybody in the audience and anyone that's listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Holcomb?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I want to echo, when I first got on the board, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I thought, I was here to do business, and all the celebrations, that was okay. I've now come to the conclusion that that's one of the most important things we do, because everything we do in Madison starts from the culture. And the fact that, as people talk about, as a family, it's a home, we need to keep building that, and I think this is a perfect demonstration about how important that is. I want to echo all the accolades that were expressed. Also, how fortunate we are now that, besides the level of service that these people put in to be not just to Madison, but throughout the education system in Arizona. And I remember when the Spanish was outlawed, I ended up taking a whole bunch of books that I collected from schools here and took them to a village in Mexico because they could use them and we couldn't. And thank God, at least at that level, we've gotten things straight. We were able to have that type of education and that demonstration. I also wanted to put a shout out to the governor for vetoing the bill that would have made school board elections partisan. Partisan politics have no place in school board elections or the discussions. It's about trying to do the best for our students and our community. It has nothing to do with party, and so I'm very happy to see that. And then I'm really looking forward to the gala. I know one of the things is a visit from Santa in there, and there's a trip to Mazatlan, and I also have just made arrangements that they're picking up the slot machines that ended up at my house and coming over. So we'll actually be slot machines there, so you'll have fun. In any event, again, I just want to put out a thank you. This demonstration, that shows much emotion, but all of this and being with everybody here, I want to thank you all so much. Allowing us to be part of this is truly hugely rewarding, and so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holcomb, do you have your outfit for the gala?
I do, but my wife said I can't wear it.
I know we'll be
She also threw out my leisure suit years ago, too. So.
Okay, I'm sure you'll come up with something. All right, Vice President Thompson.
Told my friends who ask what's the dress code, I said more showing my vintage. I said more Caesar's Palace, less Circus. So note that. I want to echo the comments that were made by my colleagues today. Not only is it a pleasure to work with you all, it is a pleasure to work with the staff at the Madison School District that serves our students every day. And echoing Member Spears' comments about Ms. Garcia, we were a hair's breadth away from being on national news, and we are so grateful for not only her heroism, but just everything our teachers do every day to keep our students safe. I'd also like to thank the Cub Scouts for doing the flag presentation today. Benjamin Bosler, Doug Higgs, Joel Simpson, and Lincoln Silver, thank you for being here and doing the flag presentation today. The students from Heights, it's so wonderful to hear you engaging with such depth and breadth of understanding in a second language. It's inspiring. It's also inspiring to see that we have people working in our district who don't just speak 2 languages, but who speak 8, and who can help with some of those students who think, I think it was 16 different languages that we're serving with our refugee population. To be able to support students in that way is really incredible. Within the last couple of weeks, I attended Heights Movie Night, which was a lot of fun. I think there were so many people putting in raffle tickets for the baskets that each class made. It was wonderful. I also visited with 4 young ladies in Miss Andrews' class to learn a little bit about their project, about the Teen Lifeline language. It was on the back of badges. Miss Marshall, I'll be talking to you about some of the questions that they asked. I thought they were really insightful. They want to find ways to make sure students know more about Teen Lifeline and how to access that. So I thank those students for inviting me to come and listen to their presentation. I'm excited to attend Viva on the 27th, and I'm also excited to attend Parks STEAM Night on the 2nd. Looking forward to that as well. And that's all I have today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the Heights, the baskets at the movie night are legendary. So next year you guys should check them out. Let's see. Yes, as Ms. Kazi mentioned, we had a little school board association meeting, president's meeting. So that was good to hear from all the other districts. And yeah, I always tell people how lucky we are because yeah, when I tell people I'm on the school board, they apologize. They're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's great actually. And let's see, tomorrow I'll be at we were invited to the Heights PTO meeting. So I'm gonna go back to my roots when when I was running the PTO meetings. So that'll be nice. Yes, thank you to all our bus drivers. It's such an important job, as we all know, especially when something like that happens. So. And I was so glad to see all the preschool awards given because we all know how super important early education is, of course. So congratulations to them as well. And in regards to the bus incident, I will remind people that last meeting, we did approve a resolution on safe gun storage. So you can take a look at that. And quiero decir gracias a los estudiantes de Madison Heights y para sus presentaciones. And their Spanish has way surpassed mine. So that was those presentations are, and it's a big difference between learning a language and learning in a language. So of course our students at Heights and Number One learn social studies, science, in addition to the language. So they learn in Spanish, which is really cool. All right, I think that's it for our reports. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any changes, requests to pull anything off? And I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair.
Oh.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will second that.
Moved by Ms. Kazi, second by Ms. Spear. Please vote. Has everyone voted? Okay, there it is, and that's unanimous. And our next agenda item is the call to public. We do have 2 calls to the public. So I will call up Val Garibay. It's hard to read, but sorry. Is she here? Val? She wants me to speak on her behalf. Okay, are you Teresa? Yes. Oh, okay, that's fine. Come on up. And you have 3 minutes, and I will just remind everyone that since this is not an agenda item, the board is not allowed to respond, so.
Correct.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Lerma. I'm a retired school administrator, K through 8, dual language and functional skills. I'm here today on behalf of my grandson, Devin Lerma. I know you can't speak, but the 3 things I want to have somebody look into is that my grandson is autistic, he's nonverbal, and we've asked all year for a one-on-one assistant, which has never happened. IEP meetings have taken place, still continue to take place. I work out of town, and when I work in the healthcare now, I receive a full pension, and I'm still working. But I was very saddened to hear that all this whole year, nonverbal 5-year-old who's a runner, and it's a safety concern, disheartening that he cannot speak, and that to find out that he's being called home because he's too hyper that day, or because he has a runny nose, which he has a doctor's excuse not to send him home because he rubs his nose. And it's not flowing, it's just a runny nose. And then to find out that the teacher was afraid water was on the ground and he was going to fall. He was making water come out of the sink. Where's the one-on-one aid? So I have no recourse but to come here. I contacted the Department of Ed, special needs attorney, because I need to know how my grandson is going to be compensated for a whole year he's lost, and then to tell his mother that they're contemplating summer school because he hasn't learned a skill. Wow. The compassion you showed tonight really makes me feel like you are caring people, but you need to look into who's running the show, who's not doing their job, because it's a disservice what has happened to my grandson, and I've helped thousands of children over the years. Why? Why did my grandson have to go through this? Somebody look into it, please. Whoever's your coordinator, your state, district, special needs person, your IEP team, there's a broken system going on here. But my grandson, who's 5 and nonverbal, and if it was your grandson, you'd be in tears. You would be saddened, because think of a world that he has to live in. And even with his augmentation device, he needs help, and there's no helper to help him. So, wow, I just ask you, with your heart and your compassion, please look into this. I myself, as an administrator, have taken a sawed-off shotgun from an 8th grader in the bathroom and saved the school. But I can't save my own grandson, but I leave it to these professionals to please look into it and get to the bottom and help us fix what's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Guerin, will you please look into that? Okay. And we will go on to 8.1, some first reads for board policies. Dr. Guerin?
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Garvey to review policy 8.1 through 8.7.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet. The board policies for first read 8.1 through 8.7 are all due to some legal updates, just to update our policy. So I'll quickly go through each one of them. The first policy, CFD, is school-based management, which is our site-based councils. Our current policy has a specific number of people that can serve on it. For example, 3 parents, 3 teachers. The new statute has taken out the number that need to or can serve, so that is being removed from the policy. Policy EBAA, reporting of hazards/warning systems. This is dealing with pesticide application notice. Some of the language has been taken off regarding the rate of application, the concentration. It's added language that we do need to know the name of the person applying the pesticide, and that was the update to that policy. Policy EBC, emergencies, very minor change here. The previous policy spoke about emergency plans, and the language has been changed now to emergency response plans. Also previously, they had been deemed the superintendent's emergency plans. That has been changed to be the district's emergency response plans. Policy ECB, building and grounds maintenance. The old policy required the superintendent to appoint a district IAQ coordinator, so an internal air quality coordinator. That is no longer a requirement, so it is being removed from the policy. Policy EEAA, walkers and riders, updates the students that can be transported for which we can claim reimbursement on transportation. It does include common school students who live more than 1 mile from the school. Before they just said 1 mile radius, so it was a very minor change there. And then it also established the area that we can go into an adjacent school district to pick up students from 20 miles to 30 miles. And that is the change on that policy. Policy JH, student absences and excuses. Language was added to this policy for the reasons that a student could be absent as an excused absence, and mental or behavioral health was added to the list of reasons. And then the last policy, JJE, which is student fundraising activities, allows the board to approve a approved fundraising activity list given to the board, so that then the superintendent, when the schools ask permission for a fundraiser, if it meets one of the fundraising methods on the list, she can approve it, he or she can approve it. And that is the end of the policies.
Thank you, Ms. Garvey. Questions on this one, Mr. Holcomb?
Yes, I just want to clarify something. I did have a question for Ms. Garvey about the transportation one, because I was concerned when I first read it that it might impinge upon our ability to use buses for out-of-district students, where we would take them to the school or collect, allow them to ride the bus to cut down on our traffic issues. Ms. Garvey walked me through it and said that it is still preserved in the language as it's changed. So I was happy to see that, because that was concerning to me, because it's a big benefit to the district.
Yep. Ms. Causey?
Thank you. Ms. Garvey, I was curious if we've ever had, I assume our approved, and I should know this, but I don't, our approved fundraising activities are rather broad to allow for a pretty broad range of activities. Have we ever had a situation, other than obviously food and smart snack issue related concerns about any fundraising activities that we just did not have on our list, or an oversight?
No, Board Member Kazi, I cannot think of any instance in which there was a fundraiser that wasn't approved.
Okay. And then my final question relates to site-based management or school-based management. So I'm just curious. So obviously this is a change that gives our principals and our site-based councils a little bit more flexibility as far as the who is participating on the councils. I am just curious, because I know this has been at least an important issue to me, that our councils at each school have sometimes taken on a different flavor. And so I was just curious at the district level what we're doing, as we've brought in so much new talent as far as our the people leading our schools. Is there a vision for what site-based management councils look like, or how the training, what does that look like? So we have some continuity, and that we are ensuring that those councils really are doing the work that they're intended to do.
I think we're both looking at Ms. Marshall, because she has
And if you want to
developed
get
some
back to me in
training.
the next meeting, because I should have brought this up to Dr. Guerin prior, and I didn't, and I apologize for that.
Yes,
happy.
thank you, Member Kazi. That would give me the opportunity to talk with the principals. There is obviously specific guidance for each school, but as you've shared, just having that continuity between our campuses will be very helpful. Thank you.
Any more?
Madam
Mr.
President,
Holcomb?
yeah, maybe that would be something appropriate for the weekly report, or when we bring this back for second read, and that information would be helpful. I think I would be interested in that as well.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Kazi. That's a great question.
And President Gresham, I do believe we had some training on it last year as we started to shore it up as we rebuilt the school councils, that we didn't really have very many meetings during COVID. So I think we had a refresher, but we can definitely gather that information.
Thank you. Okay, and since that is a first read, we are not voting, and we'll move on to our second read, Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. This is our second read for the policies Dr. Lomeli and I presented at the last board meeting. With Dr. Lomeli's policies, 9.1 and 9.2, we added a comma, an all-important comma. But there was a little bit of change in regards to the agenda, 9.4, where though we were in compliance in regards to what we had listed, we made some changes to make it more accurately reflect the procedures that we do in medicine, so it's more reflective of our current agenda. And those were sent to you in your weekly update. So I'm happy to entertain any questions on those changes.
Questions or comments on our second read? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve these.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Holcomb, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, and thank you for all of you that are keeping up with those for us. Thank you. All right, item 10.1, our grant update. Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, I'm so excited to hear the 21st Century Grant Update. This is one of the most coveted grants that you can get as a school system, and it's through the hard work of many people that we were awarded this. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Marshall.
Thank you, President Gresham, members of the board, and members of cabinet. As Dr. Guerin said, just great news to get this grant. This is our first year of implementation, and a shout out to Keisha Breiling and her team. This is a competitive grant that we were able to secure for Madison Park, and the focus was really to address the chronic absenteeism for the students by putting together before and after school program activities that would entice the students to be on campus, and we're really excited to share the implementation and the progress that we've made. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Breiling.
Thank you. President Gresham, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet, thank you for the opportunity to share some of these amazing things that we're doing over at Madison Park. Since this is the first year we have the 21st Century, I wanted to just explain a little bit about the grant. As they mentioned, it is a competitive grant that is federally funded for the out-of-school time programs to help focus on both academics, youth development, and family engagement. So we applied for that grant last school year and were awarded a 5-year grant for Madison Park for a total of $540,000, which begins this school year. Once we were awarded the grant, we had to select specific goals, both for academics, youth development, and family engagement that align with the school improvement plans, as well as our district strategic plans. And then the requirement in order to keep some of this funding is that we have to host 100 students have to attend a minimum of 30 days within the program year. There's a small 75% exception for that for the first year to help us kind of get off the ground, but that is the requirement for the grant. So one of the first things that I did was you approved the job description, and I was able to hire a 21st Century coordinator. Lucky enough to take somebody from our own community ed team, and Miss Jess has been running our 21st Century program this year and has done a phenomenal job over there, making sure that we hit the ground running. So what we did this year, as Ms. Marshall said, we wanted to target our chronically absent students. And that was with an agreement that we made with Parks prior administration. So our main goal this year was to get the kids on campus. And we knew that with the amazing staff we have at Park, if we could get the kids there, the teachers would be able to have some greater impact with their academics. So these are some of the clubs that we offered, again, before school to help with the tardiness. Anything from oil painting, handwriting, they're learning cursive and handwriting club, bookmaking, garden club, eBird Explorers, and then we did have a vendor come in, do some STEM activities. And shout out to Mr. Bilger. He not only agreed to help get middle schoolers excited about bird watching, but was able to crowdsource some things and get some funding for binoculars to help make sure every student is there. And it's amazing to watch the kids come to school before school in the morning and be able to walk to the park and see some of the birds and explore all of those things. So really a testament to, if you are excited about something, you can get anybody excited about something. And then after school, we have art club, chess club, journalism, and puzzle club. Through the grant, we were also able to offer snacks for all of Park sports students and makerspace students as well. So we're not paying for those programs, but because of the grant, we're able to feed them after school, which is always popular for middle school. So as we mentioned, student attendance was our focus. So what we did is we targeted those students. They got invitations to come to the free before and after school program first. And these were our targets. We only had 5 or 6 students the first 2 quarters, but as you can see, those 5 or 6 students had a 61% and a 76% of school attendance improvement. We did another big push over winter break, and we had up to 15 that were in attendance for quarter 3. So you can see those numbers weren't quite we had more of the chronically absent students, but we still had a 20% improvement in their school day attendance. So we're still working on quarter 4 data, but we are very excited that we got to make some of those improvements in the attendance for our kiddos. So one of the main pillars of the 21st Century Grant is family engagement. They know that family engagement is crucial to the success of our kids. And we were able to serve so far over 40 families. Some of the weekly newsletters, Ms. Jess does a great job including some pictures with all of the amazing activities that they're doing, as well as check-ins during drop-off and pick up and drop off. We did start with a parent university that the social worker over at Madison Park helped us put on. Those attendance in that was not as great as we had hoped, so what we tried to do is meet the parents where they were. One of the things we did over breaks is we gave each student a bingo card and said, hey, over break, see if you can make a bingo. And these were activities like read 30 minutes to a sibling, or go for a walk with your parent, or build some origami, because they were learning about that at the time, and then check those things off. And with the support of Parks Administration, we were able to have them bring those back, give them some additional PBIS points to have some of those rewards to create that engagement. We had a great turnout at the Winter Showcase over at the Madison Center for the Arts. Parents love to come see some of the cool things students are doing. And then, as Ms. Thompson said, they will be represented as well at May 2nd on the STEAM night over there as well. And then one of my favorite parts was Bring Your Parent to Club Day. We had a great turnout with parents, and you can see some of the pictures from that day. Students teaching their parents chess. They were able to make bracelets out of Starburst wrappers and teaching their parents how to follow those instructions with the art teacher. It was a really an amazing time to see the parents engage with their kiddos. Some of the highlights, again, 185 families that were served. Again, those are some of the students in our club, and then also the sports and makerspace students that we were able to help feed. So over 3,600 snacks. So thank you so much to the park cafeteria team for adding that to their already busy breakfast and lunch schedule. The snacks were a big hit for our students after school. 175 hours of programming, both before school and after school. That was beneficial over at Park. Again, we were trying to target the tardiness in the morning, and then overall attendance during the day. And then you can see some of the awesome things that our students were able to participate in. So what's next? We've had our great first year trying to learn as we go. Part of the 21st Century program is a summer program. So we will be operating our 21st Century summer program from June 3rd to June 27th, Monday through Thursday. We're now up to 58 students registered. So that will be held over at Madison Park. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a 4-section rotation. So every student enrolled will take a language arts class, they will take a math class, and then they will have a choice of 2 electives. Either art, coding, Lego STEM, or PE. So thank you to some of those donations that came in for Lego STEM. That's going to really help some of those activities, but we're really trying to balance those for the kids, help them come. We're going to do a little focus on academics, but then have a great time while we're there. We're excited about, at the end of the summer program for 21st Century, we're going to partner with the Community Ed MAC Camp, and they're both going to take a day trip up to Chauncey Ranch to learn some of the STEM activities with archery and all of those things. The 21st Century program students will get to participate in that for free. We will be gone all day. They will get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as well as a fun experience up at Chauncey Ranch. Other changes that we're doing for 2024-25, this year we did 4 quarter sessions. The registration lift on that was just a little heavy, trying to communicate with parents and get all of that information back. So we're gonna go to 2 longer sessions. So one for semester 1, one for semester 2. Although we had that focus on attendance and just having fun and getting kids to school, we want to add some additional academic components in. So we've been working with curriculum and instruction with some of our coaches, and we're going to add Lexi and Waggle, which are both computer-based softwares where kids can just jump on for 15, 20 minutes a day. It's pacing, their teachers can see what they're doing, what extra supports they need, so we're going to add that in after school a little bit. We're going to extend the time from 4:45 to 5 p.m. By the time they get out of school and we have snack and we get checked in, it's just the teachers wanted a little more time, especially if we're going to add some academics after that. And then we're going to add some new classes. So we have a program specialist with ADE that comes out, evaluates the program. She was very complimentary in our first year, both of Ms. Jess and the things that we're starting in a first year program. Assuming we meet our compliance with all of our kids, which we have another week to make the end of programming, we're so close, that we are going to be offered an additional $30,000 for the upcoming school year to offer more classes so that we can have more kids participate. So we're really excited about that. And the things that Park can, that we can support Park in both the academics and the social emotional components. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenning. This is amazing, and the attendance numbers are very commendable, so thank you. I'll save my questions for last, but anyone else have questions or comments? We'll go Ms. Spear, then Ms. Kazi.
I don't really have any questions. I just, wow. It's amazing what you've been able to do with this grant. Congratulations on getting this grant. I know that it is just a huge feather in Madison's cap and just such a boon to our students at Madison Park. Thank you for doing all of the work that you're doing. I've not had a chance to meet you, and I just want to say thank you so much. And hats off. This is like the best presentation. It's just wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kazi?
So I was just curious, just a little bit of some of the data points. So obviously we're targeting our frequent flyers, and what, like, so we know what that pool is. How is it? Is it the 100 students at 30 days? Like, how big is that pool of targeted students that we're working with?
So what we did with the targeted students and the way the grant is written is we have to really push those invitations first. So Park had kept a list, of the students last year that were there. We looked at the 4th grade Camel View kids that rolled up. And those were the invitations we sent first. Hey, this is a great opportunity. Obviously, we didn't get 100 kids that were on that list. So once we met that threshold and we invited those students, then we were able to open up the invitation to anybody that wanted to attend. And we worked with Ms. Gossett and as well as the Park teachers to say, okay, what students would benefit from this? What students need a safe place to go after school? What students could use some additional support in a variety of areas? And then we expanded that. So anywhere from 5 to 15 kiddos of our 88 students that participated were on that chronically absent list. So it's not that we can only serve those students, but that's where we started.
Excellent. And then as you serve them, obviously, I'm sure there were points where it became obvious that there were some barriers that no matter, that they became more obvious. Can you just share, I imagine transportation might have been some of them, just what those barriers might have been to participation or, kids being able to continue to participate?
So transportation is evidently a big one to begin with. We were able, included in the grant, students that stay before and after school, we're able to transport them that are within the boundaries. Ms. Jess has done a great job working with building those relationships. So we do have a couple families that may have been outside of our district boundaries, but we've been able to coordinate and get them bus passes and those types of things. And then just really working with families and figuring out what they need and what they want to be able to engage with us. And so this first first year was a really exploratory, what works, what doesn't work. What we're finding is anything that we can get parents to do with their children, whether it's bring your parent to club day or the showcases, the parents are showing up. So we're looking at what can we do there, and then how can we marry together what we see the needs of parents being and what they want to participate in. Can we do a little 15-minute literacy session or a ruler session to talk about those skills that they're learning at school? And then you can stay and do these things with your children. So it's one of the main pillars of 21st century, so it's definitely something that we're going to continue to dig into and see how we can improve.
And then, awesome work. And then finally, last question in regards to the camp, who is that available to? The summer camp?
The summer camp so we initially opened it up to, again, those target populations, those students that are on the chronically absent list. Once we gave them about a week to register, then we opened it up to the rest of the park community. We gave them 2 weeks, I believe, to register, and then at that point, we opened it up to the current Camel View 4th graders that will be park 5th graders next year, and that's where we kind of hit that sweet spot. We only have enough teachers to take 60 kids this year, and so that's kind of how we tiered out the registration process.
I just have to say, for the population that you're targeting, this level of students is outstanding. When I was with the boys choir, we participated in the Ducey program where it offered free camp for kids, and nobody saw numbers like this, unless it was like a camp that started at 7 a.m. and ended at 6, which is the outlier. So really well done, and really impressive results. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holcomb?
Yes, I was wondering if as you're expanding the program, I noticed you had one vendor on there, but there are a number of nonprofits or that there's funding that's necessary for, like the Sounds program and Education Empowers. I know that we've been looking at those. Are you working with them to try to enhance, or them and other programs like that to enhance the offerings that are coming up?
So we haven't currently started any conversations outside of some vendors that are reaching out specifically to park with those STEAM focuses. This initial summer program is going to be a little bit of a heavy lift to get started. So we've been working on that, but the program is over the end of June, and we're looking forward to July and August trying to start drumming up some more of those relationships, because part of the grant is sustainability and how can we continue to have some of these conversations to get these people on campus and contributing to our students. So.
And I think particularly the board and others too, is if there are things that you want to target, if you'd let us know. I think there's a lot of connections with those types of organizations on this board, and we'd love to help out. I've been directing some to Dr. Guerin already that I've seen, and because I think that's how we make it sustainable and building those partnerships. The other thing too is at times we've used programs at Park and Camel View to help the transition from the 4th to the 5th grade. In other words, have programs that go across those grade levels, and I'd hope you'd look at that as well. I think that's a good way to, as the 4th graders, it's a good way to help them integrate into Park as they come across. I know I worked with Priscilla before when she was at Park the first time around on trying to make that things that help that transition.
Okay, we will look into those.
And you could do the barbershop. I know you know a few barbers. Your kids are great barber shoppers. So
they are.
That would be great. Dr. Guerin, did you have a comment on that? And then
I did. I just wanted to mention that the department did a heavy lift to write the grant for Camel View, and we're still waiting to find out. So, yeah, I didn't mean to bring it up and jinx it, but we know what a heavy lift that grant application is. So I just wanted to say thank you to you and your team.
Yes, for sure. When is that one? When are you supposed to know for that?
So when I found out about the park grant, it was the end of April. I was hopeful that we could have some good news to share, but I haven't quite heard yet. The ADE announcement doesn't come until June, but usually they start communicating with us end of April, beginning of May. So I'm hopeful in the next week or two, we'll either be able to make plans to have another grant over at Camel View, very similar with the same requirements. I've worked with Mr. Smith. He wanted the grant application we wrote for Camel View was to target our English language learner population, because that's the need over at Camel View. So we'll be able to, that's what we wrote into the grant. So fingers crossed, we'll hear in the next couple of weeks. That'll be an awesome opportunity if we're awarded the Camel View grant as well.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for all your work on both of those. Ms. Thompson.
I just wanted to thank you for your work on this. As Member Kazi said, these numbers are fantastic when you're targeting groups of students who and families who aren't engaging in the school, and to have those numbers shine is really incredible. So thank you and your team for the work. Good luck. Knock on wood. Whatever, break a leg, I don't know, whatever we need to say about the other one, we'll just leave it at that. Just one thing to add, I'd be really interested if there are ways to maybe have some of the middle school students interact with some of the preschool students too. If it's, reading buddies or something like that. I know that my nephews who are in their 20s now talk about the middle school buddies they had, the kindergarten buddies they had in their K-6 when they were sixth graders, and they had kindergartners that they partnered with early on. And I just think that could be an opportunity. And since those preschoolers are there a little bit earlier and a little bit later, there could be a 21st century grant opportunity to maybe interact with those kids in a different way too. So just throw that out. And I see somebody raising their hand.
Come on up. Come on up to the podium. Yep. We'd love to hear.
Our bookmaking club is actually planning on reading this Thursday to our preschoolers that are on the Madison Park campus. So we are trying to make some of those connections too. So.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Jermaine, already on it. Thank you. Most of my comments and questions were answered. I do have a question just as far as attendance. I don't know if you had it on a slide, but was there more AM versus PM? I'm just curious about that and what the difference is there.
So we had more clubs in the morning because, again, the thought process was if I can get you to school, you will stay at school. I don't have specific numbers in here for those. We did segregate the absences and tardies because those are very different target populations and why they're tardy. I know Ms. Jess spent a lot of time at the beginning communicating with the park office with what are the challenges, and we found a lot of challenges like, well, parents work graveyard shifts, so I expect my 11-year-old to get themselves up and go to school on their own, and so how can we support those and how can we have those conversations? But we did have more 5 days a week in the morning, so we had programming Monday through Friday in the morning, and then we did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the beginning of the school year, realizing that Wednesdays just didn't work out like we'd hoped. And so we just changed to Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays for after school.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and I just was going to comment that maybe because you've learned so much and have been helping these students, maybe we can apply some of these lessons that we've learned from Park to our other schools too to help with their chronic tardiness or absenteeism. So thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we'll do 10.2 is up next, our English learner update.
Yes, President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. I'll turn it over once again to Assistant Superintendent Barb Marshall.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. Ms. Breiling gave me a perfect segue without realizing it when she said that the 21st century application for Madison Camel View is to support our English learners. Tonight, we do have a presentation to talk to you about the program and supports that we have in place across the district for all of our English learners, and that is through our Curriculum and Instruction Department under the direction of Laura Webb. So I'll turn it over to Director Webb.
Good evening, President Gresham, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet. Thank you. I'm excited to present about our English language development program in Madison. Lots of talk about language tonight with Park and Ms. Spear. A lot of, you stole my thunder a little bit with some of the benefits of being bilingual. But I think one of the things that stands out to me is that there are so many skills associated with it that as adults we see as such great attributes and things that we coveted even for ourselves that we don't have. But in a school setting, sometimes that gets a little overlooked because it's difficult at that time. So I think constantly part of the reason I put in big bold being bilingual is a superpower. That's the message that we want to send, not only to our staff, but the rest of our students, that being bilingual or multilingual, as the case may be, is really something that we should be celebrating and looking for opportunities to enhance. So that's what we are aiming to do with our English language development program. So this is just a really quick outline of what the different topics are that I wanted to kind of discuss and talk with you about a little bit tonight, from our vision and mission to the asset-based behaviors and expectations from the state, our SEI models and our placement and testing, and then just some basic facts and next steps. So in Madison, we know that we have a vision and a mission, a vision for inspiring passion for learning and leading, and our mission, fostering success for all. And some people will ask, well, what's the mission? What's the purpose of the EL or the language development program? And really, the simple message is it's the same. It should be the same for all students. And if we're talking about all students, we're talking about all students. Our EL students should have the same dynamic and engaging and relevant learning opportunities that every other student might have. Did I not change it? Sorry. And we also need to recognize that they bring with them some very rich cultural differences and awarenesses that enhance all of our students. So it is the same, kind of magnified. So Arizona's language development approach was adopted in 2019. With COVID, it was slow to be implemented across the state, and Madison was also a little slow in that we have now, this year, have designated targeted and integrated teachers, which I'll get to in a minute. But you notice in this graphic of the language development approach from the state of Arizona, there are 4 prongs around, which are the 4 tenets of this program. All the way around includes student agency. And student agency is really just highlighting the active role in learning that all students need to take. And that's super, super important and more magnified with our EL population, just from the standpoint that sometimes they're not, and their voice isn't heard, and they are quiet, and they are not called upon with all good intention. But that is something that we need to make sure that we are magnifying and saying student agency is important, and we're giving opportunities for that. The other piece that I want to point out is the center, where it talks about all educators share the responsibility for promoting the success of English learners. I would argue that all educators implies on our campuses all staff, all adults. So there are places to be had in any walk of or any part of any campus to promote the success of English language learners, whether that's the cafeteria or the playground or the front office or in the classroom. And so thinking about all of the different ways that we can celebrate and we can encourage their speaking, their language, their integrating language into all aspects of their lives is really important. So the 4 areas are around the circle. They are asset-based, integrated, targeted, and assessment and monitoring, which surrounds AZELA. So I'm going to take a little bit of time and talk about each of those just a little bit. So the first one is asset-based behaviors and expectations. So what the state would want us to think about is that English language learners have rich linguistic resources, and we need to celebrate them and look at them as asset-based instead of deficit-based. One of the easiest ways to do that is to look at our own language. When we have students, if we think about the refugees who are coming to us, the way in which we talk about them or we describe them might be monolingual. And instead, an asset-based approach would be pre-emergent bilingual. They're not there yet. They're not bilingual yet. They haven't learned English, but they're on their way. And our job is to get them farther on that way, or completely proficient in 2 languages. So thinking about just the asset-based, not only behaviors, but language that we use is important. And that can be difficult to go over time. It took me a long time. I would stop in the middle of my sentence and I'd say, pre-emergent bilingual, and I had to just train myself because it's just a different way of thinking about it, but it's the right way to do that. And I think that that's an area that we have to continue to promote and be very diligent with, not only with our teachers, but with our communities and with our parents. Below, I wrote, or I included 10 ways to value EL language assets. These are all sorts of different ways that the assets of our English language learners can be valued in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So an advocate for multilingualism, encouraging peer conversations. That's very difficult for some of our English language learners. They don't know language, but you would be amazed when you put two students together how sometimes they can just figure it out. I think, Dr. Guerin, you were talking to me about some kids who were in one of our targeted classrooms, or maybe it was the integrated classroom, and they were talking about triangles, 2 kindergartners, and the one kindergartner couldn't speak, but she was using hand signals, she was doing things, she was speaking, and she was getting her message across. Encouraging those peer interactions is crucial. Instead of sitting in a classroom where you're only sitting and listening, but actually engaging and doing things is critical. And that's one of the components that our English language, or ELD coordinator, Karen Lehman, practices with those targeted teachers and integrated teachers in trying to encourage that type of interaction in the classrooms. Next is the Madison SEI model. So there are several models that the state allows school districts to have. Madison has chosen the 2-hour model, which it's through pullout. The exception to that is our dual language school, which has a 30-minute pullout, which is 30 minutes of targeted, and then the rest of the day is an integrated. But for the rest of our schools, we have a targeted and an integrated model. So 60 minutes, it's either 50 or 60, depending on the grade level of the integrated, and 50 or 60 of the targeted. So I'm going to spend some time on the left-hand side in the gray area there, talking about the targeted in English instruction. So by state guidance, our targeted English instruction has to be explicitly in English. They are to engage in rigorous academic content within that targeted time. They use the English language proficiency standards to teach language. It is basically a language class. It is 60 minutes daily in K-5. They also provide us with guidance in terms of who can be pulled and when. So kindergarten has to be pulled by themselves. So any kindergartners you have in a classroom have to be pulled into a targeted class solely by themselves. First grade is the same thing. You're allowed to group 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th, and 6th through 8 in that targeted area, in that targeted time, I should say. Below, it talks about program requirements. Again, the instruction and the materials are supposed to be in English. So you might ask, so how does that work if you have a student who is pre-emergent bilingual, who is coming to us with no language skills in English? How do you start moving that? We have employed some different programs, one of which is one of our computer programs that we sometimes use for language development for students who are struggling with just basic social language. Will read directions in English, then read them in the language of their first language so that they understand what to do, and then they will go back to English. And that's allowable by law. Doing a mix of that to get your point across, but the instruction of the content should be in English. You can supplement sometimes in their primary language, but it has to be taught in English as well. So the lesson plans by the targeted teachers are designed to be language-based. They they collaborate with the integrated teachers and the English teachers to make sure that they're pulling some content in from their integrated classroom, so they're getting that language as well. In our 2 schools that have refugee students currently, we have created a little bit of a pseudo model there, where we'll take Rose Lane. Rose Lane has time in their day where they're pulling only refugee students and spending a little bit of extra time with them doing just basic, what we would call survival language. A lot of them to understand and to get their basic needs met, especially when they go back into a general integrated classroom. And then they also come back for targeted instruction with other EL students that are in their own grade level. So we're kind of separating them for a little bit to get that basic language, and then they're getting some additional targeted at that school. Then if you move to integrated is pretty much the rest of the day. I mean, they're integrated throughout the day, but within specific classes, they will have an integrated English instruction. And for the most part, that is happening in our English language arts classes across the district. Those are, again, the times are similar, where they need to attach academic language to language development. And in those particular classes, it should be comprised of mixed groups. So you don't just have your EL students, you have everyone in there so that they have the benefit of peer models, they have the benefit of social language with other students in their grade level and at their age level. And it also involves the ELP standards that have a lot of language scaffolds. And scaffolds are just ways to be able to provide support and build up. So for instance, for scaffolds, you may have a student who is in an integrated classroom and they're listening to some instruction in whatever content you want to think about. And there is a time that there are peer or group work or table groups where they're sharing information, and you specifically target specific kids together that will be able to work together. Sometimes you can pair a third person along just so they're being immersed in listening if they're not capable, or they're not, I shouldn't say capable, but they're not able to fully engage in the conversation, but they can take things in. That's the first step, and then you encourage one word or you encourage two. We've done a nice job at our schools in buddying people up and creating partners, student partners with other students to try and increase that social language and the cooperativeness between students when they get to academic tasks. And that has been successful and has been happening nicely. The last tenet on the state's approach is for assessment and monitoring. And so this is where Azella comes in. So when I thought I'd kind of walk through what the enrollment and testing and placement looks like in Madison. So if a student comes to us, whether they're open enrollment or they're in-district student, they complete, part of the registration is to complete a home language survey. And in that home language survey, they are asked what type of languages are spoken at home. We have learned from experience and with the current law to be careful. And what I mean by that is that we really want parents to have a very full understanding of this form and what that entails and what happens if their student has another language, including Azella. And I'll explain a little bit more in just a minute. We've done a lot of work to make sure principals are having conversations with the families. This is because sometimes the families do not understand and they do not fill it out correctly. And then we are backtracking and trying to understand, is this a student who needs services, in language development services, or is this not a student who needs that? For instance, at some of our schools, we have families that have people in their homes who speak a different language. And so they write, yep, they speak another language, they're there. It may be a nanny, it may be a different neighbor, it could be anyone, right? And what ends up happening is then that obligates us and obligates the parent into this Azella system, which may not need to happen. And so we're being careful about giving them all of the facts, saying this is the form, this is what you need to do, full transparency, this is what this is about, and they fill that out. That's okay. So once that is filled out, if there is any other language, or if there is history of a student participating in a English language program, an SEI program in another school, then we determine that we need to give an Azella test. An Azella placement is administered within 30 days, and then we determine what the results of those are. Our research and evaluation department has taken over Azella testing this year, so they take care of scheduling and completing the Azella test in all of our schools. So we get the results, and then we notify the sites what those results are, and we notify the parent what those results are. And then it is up to us to get a parent approval or consent to be placed in the program. The parent always has the right to opt out of language services. However, they do not have the right to opt out of Azella testing if they qualify for services. And so thus becomes a little bit of an issue with some families who do not wish their child to participate, but must participate in testing if they have qualified. So we schedule testing, we notify results, we get consent or non-consent, and then the school is responsible for placing those students in the appropriate classes. So down below it says, did you know? So these are the two things that I was kind of talking about parents may withdraw their student from EL services, but they cannot decline the administration of Azella for students who attend a public school in Arizona. And that is until they reach proficiency, and that is through 12th grade. Also, EL students who are identified as having a learning disability still must participate in the Azella annually until they test proficient. Both the English language and SPED services are required by federal law. So that is not something, in the past, we could allow for parent withdrawal and then they would be absolved from taking any of it. That is not the case. Even if a parent chooses to withdraw their student, those students still must take an Azella test. There is an alternative Azella test, but it is used extremely infrequently, extremely infrequently. By the numbers, I think I gave a lot of this when I spoke at the interfaith breakfast, but these are somewhat updated. Again, I gave this information last week and it's changed. So by the numbers, we have had about now it's about a 51% increase in EL students this year. At the K4 level, we have 195, 121 at 5.8. Currently, we have 321 EL students. And then we also have, and the integrated and targeted teachers numbers are the same. And we have 40 new refugees as of today in our schools. So that is going to, as we talked about before, that will increase, we anticipate. So understanding and knowing the different components of the state program and what is required, but also what is necessary, what is good for kids is important. So our next steps in our department are really to increase the parent participation in English language classes. We currently offer English language classes for parents starting in January. It's a spring type of class. And we have participation and sign up at the beginning. And as I understand it, this is new to me, my understanding is that whittles off as time goes on. I think we had signed up about 20 this year and we have around 10 now. So it starts to whittle off. It is an online program that went online a few years ago, and that might be something that we start looking at bringing back to a in-person type of setting. We would also like to increase EL participation in after-school clubs, athletics, and activities. This is really, really important. And if you think about social language and the way that you learn things by doing, you learn things that you enjoy. And if we get students to be engaged in something, if it's after school, whether it's a club or a sport or something that they like, the likelihood that they will participate and speak and make friends is much higher, which then we think will transfer into academic tasks in the classroom. So we really would like to encourage that, and that really does have a lot to do with us and making sure that we're doing a good job of promoting that, making sure that the information about tryouts for sports and clubs and everything are going home and in the language that they can understand fluently before we expect anyone to sign up. We also would like to increase the number of EL students screened for gifted services. We know that they are out there and it's difficult to see sometimes. We're looking at determining some, what I wouldn't call them red flags, well, they're kind of like warning signs, like signals, like, boy, this is a kid we really need to take a look at. There are some times I walk into a classroom, I walked into a targeted classroom with a second grader, and I looked at him and I looked at the teacher and I said, this kid needs to be tested for gifted. Because of his quickness, his engagement, you ask him and he's trying and he's right there into it. And he may not be gifted, but the way that he behaves, it's something that we can hang on to besides a test score that may or may not be accurate with a student who doesn't speak English. So really looking at what those kinds of signals might be for teachers to increase that number of kids screened is important. And also increase the awareness that bilingualism should be seen as a gift and not as a burden. And understanding, as a former classroom teacher, administrator, it is difficult when you have a pre-emergent bilingual, not so much as difficult on them, but this burden that you feel that you're not sure you're doing anything or that you're helping. So helping our teachers have sets of skills and different materials that they feel comfortable, so they feel like they are affecting students in a positive way is really important. And I think that will go a long way to increasing the awareness that this is really a neat thing. Quick story, when I was a 7th grade teacher, I did current events in my classroom. I had a student who's a pre-emergent bilingual in that class, and part of my requirement was to do current event reports. And they had one a quarter that they had to stand up and do a current event report. And she would get the article. She would never come up. She didn't want to come up and present, my friend. And I said, okay, the first time you just sit with me and you tell me as much as you can. And she did. The next time I said, how about you come up and we'll do it together. She hid under the desk. And I coaxed her out and we would do something else. The third time, I think I stood up there and she did something. The fourth time she did it all by herself and she cried because she was so happy with herself. But it takes that long and it takes that commitment and but at the end result is phenomenal. How great that feels. That's the light bulb. That's the thing that you want as a teacher. And I know all of our teachers would want that. So providing the support is really important. And as you know, the powerful gift of bilingualism, the things that bilingualism can give our students are all on here. Multitasking, brain, stimulating the brain health, enhancing communication skills. They are more marketable. They earn more money. All the things we want for all of our students, right? Do you know that 51% of the CEOs in America are bilingual? Again, success begets success, right? This is something for all of us to aspire to, and that's the goal. So,
Thank you, Dr. Webb. This was super informative. Sorry?
Just Miss Webb. Did you call me Dr.
Miss Webb? Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was like, what are you saying? You were finished, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this was very informative. I really like the goals, the next steps. Those are really important. Of course, we all know that just because you don't speak the language doesn't mean you're incapable of learning, obviously. I had a refugee student when I coached cross country. And I actually had trouble, like I could never really get a hold of the mom, but the student would figure it out and she kept showing up. We made sure she had shoes and she loved it, so it was great. So yeah, definitely the participation part as well. So all right, I'll take questions, comments from our Ms. Kazi.
Thank you for a great presentation. When my son Dylan was in first grade, he was in at the time, ELL class, because he won the Jackbox. And it was an interesting class because I had not, up to that point, really understood what was happening with our English, and at the time it was called ELL, now it's EL, English language learners. And what I saw was that they were because of state law, being pulled out during science and social studies and digs and class parties sometimes, and it was heartbreaking to me. So it's so lovely to see how far we've moved forward. Mm-hmm. But what I love the most about your presentation and what I love seeing in that particular classroom was that there was an asset-based approach. Even though the teacher in that classroom, I think, wasn't necessarily prepared to serve those students, she did a great job as best she could. And for my kid, they finally, at the end of the year, we decided to have kind of an international festival where every kid could bring in, do a board about the country where their heritage came from, maybe bring in food, bring in family members. And it was lovely. There was a little boy from Iraq who did not speak much that year and probably had dealt with a fair amount of trauma, which is one of the reasons why he was probably in the United States. And I had never seen a kid so, clearly he was so proud of, who he was in that moment when we had that International Day, because it was a way for every kid to be told by the other kids, oh my gosh, it's so cool, and the food from your country is fabulous, and it was wonderful. And to me, it's powerful to see that is embedded in what we're doing at Madison. And so thank you for that, because it is powerful and palpable, and you could see the difference in how kids approach school when they felt like they were seen and where they came from was meaningful and important. That being said, I was curious, so will our recent arrivals be tested for Zella, and will that affect, as far as state law is considered, Like, will that affect our movement of students on Azella?
No.
No,
So
okay.
the way that Azella works is we test new students coming to us at the beginning of the school year. We test them as soon as they enter. For the first semester of the school year, we will test. We test annually for reassessment every February, around February. So if you come in the first part of the year, you will take that February assessment. If you come at a later date after the first of the new fiscal year, you do not take that February test. You wait an additional year to take it again. So the students that are coming to us, most of the refugees, just I would say a handful were here in December. The majority of them were January, February, and we're still getting them. They did not take Azella this year. They will take it next February, so they will not be reclassified if they would be reclassified until next February.
That's helpful. Thank you so much.
Any other, oh, Ms. Thompson has some.
I just want to echo Ms. Kazi's statements. I think it's so wonderful. Thank you so much for this presentation. One of the things that I wanted to point out, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is, I really appreciate you talking about not just bilingualism, but multilingualism. I think so often, especially in this state, when we think about bilingual, we think about Latino students and kids who speak Spanish. And it wasn't on your list, but I remember you brought it up at the breakfast. How many languages, and it might have changed with those 3 or 4 new students, but how many languages are spoken by our students? And if it's a round number, and I think it's about, that's fine too.
No, that's okay. You have a great memory. I did say 16 when I presented. Now it's 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the recognition that those are 17 home languages, right? That might mean that students speak more than one language, is more than just those 17 languages. As we had a demonstration of a paraprofessional here who spoke 8 languages, and that is such a rich gift that is given to all our other students in the district. So I love we're talking about bilingualism and multilingualism being a superpower. Teaching those students and reminding kids who might be monolingual that it's pretty special what these kids have, and that they might know a lot of things, but they might not be able to communicate it in the same way that they communicate is a really important skill to make sure we're teaching our other children who are just English speakers.
Well, and I will say that the likelihood that our students who are speaking 2 languages, speaking more than that, at least picking up some other languages is happening in their targeted classrooms because it's a multilingual classroom, right? And sometimes the words they're teaching each other are not great. And other times they're really lovely and they're learning different, communication styles. So, but they definitely are learning some different skills. So, yeah.
That's great. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Ms. Webb, sorry. I'm going to will you into being a doctor. All right. And we'll go on to our one and only action item.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, Ms. Garvey will propose a resolution for sale of school improvement bonds. Ms. Garvey.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet. As you recall, back in November, the voters passed through the bond election, passed a $105 million bond. In order for us to sell any bonds, there is a requirement that the governing board approve a resolution for the issuance and sale of those bonds. This would be our first sale from that election, and we are targeting sometime in May, at the latest early June, depending on market conditions. And this resolution allows us to actually issue and sell those bonds. We are asking for a resolution for $40 million. We're looking right now between 35 and 40 million, somewhere in there. And the bond program that would go with that would meet our requirements, that really we don't try to exceed, that we try to stay within the payback period of 10 to 12 years. And we're looking at funding projects that were identified in the bond program. So finishing the last phases of Madison Park, starting the initial phase of Madison Rose Lane, which is planning and design, and then continuing with our safety and security measures, as long as some vehicles and life cycle items that happen. So tonight we are asking for the resolution to be approved.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, motions to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Holcomb, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Garvey. We'll move on to 12.1. Dr. Guerin.
President Gresham, members of the board, cabinet, and guests, I can't believe we're already looking at our May meetings. And please check your calendars. May is a very, very busy month when you're a board member. So on May 7th, this is our big recognition event. We ask that you arrive by, I think, 4:30, correct, Ms. Jackie? We'll be doing a run-through with cabinet next week. So that will start at 5. We'll come over here by 6. We will have a public hearing for a district budget revision. And then we'll have our typical items, and we'll move right into policies. It is Ms. Marshall's turn for policy reading, and we'll finish up with second reads from Ms. Garvey. And then we are excited to bring the information item about the structures of co-teaching, and that is our inclusive teaching practices. So much work has been done this year, so I'm excited that Ed Services will provide an update on that. And that's all we're doing because the computer's stuck.
There.
Oh, there we go. And so then we will also, interestingly enough, we just received from ASBA the proposed political agenda. So we're getting an early start on that. Thank you, Ms. Kazi. And so, Ms. Thompson, I believe you will kick that off for us. Then the action items will have some more from Ms. Garvey, moving into promotion ceremonies on May 20th and May 21st with a regular governing board meeting that will be smack dab in the middle. I think the time on that, I can't remember if it's 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, so I'll double check. We may have moved that. The promotion's at 5 o'clock, the meeting's at 3. Okay, we just do what Danielle tells us to do.
Yes.
Yes. All right, and I think that's a glimpse of May.
Any comments on the future meetings, conflicts? Can I just request, I don't know if this is Ms. Guin, but for the recognition event, can we just make sure all the schools report? Because sometimes they don't get reported and our students don't get recognized, and I feel really bad when that happens. So I just want to make sure we get them all.
Jackie is working very, 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 very hard on that. And if you'd like to help her call people, just let her know.
I will totally help you with that, yes. All right.
Board members calling.
Yeah. Then they might
I
respond.
think that would really help, actually.
Or they'll ignore, like send to voicemail.
Yes. Let's introduce yourself, President Gresham.
Thank you. And I'll take a motion to adjourn. If there's anything else for the good of the order. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Kazi, second by Ms. Thompson. And we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.